No, that's page 90 in your agenda, and that was just updated. Should be for finance. Esta ya está aquí.
Puede editar,
Ajá,
pero la tienes que subir de donde está en la página de la ciudad, la tienes que subir a algún...
sí. No la ocupa. Ya Mónica ya lo tiene aquí. La muchacha que le ayuda a Mónica ya se lo tiene ahí listo. Ya listo para editar.
Claro. Veo lo que va a estar observando.
Sí, usted.
Pero aún así anotas algunas que estás en...
Sí, no las apunto aquí, las apunto acá. ¿Usted tiene una copia de la agenda?
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our regular City Council meeting for February 20th. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready, begin. If we can all please remain standing for a moment of silence for our first responders and military members. Thank you. May be seated. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Councilmember Roth? Councilmember Mann?
Present.
Councilmember Soto?
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Samra? Mayor Moran?
Present.
For the record, Councilmember Roth and Mayor Pro Tem Samra are absent.
Thank you. Next, we have, we did not have a closed session, so there's nothing to report. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A report out from the prior closed session. There was no reportable action taken during closed session at the prior meeting.
Thank you. Council, are there any changes to the agenda? Thank you. So at this time, we have citizen comments. This section of the agenda allows members of the public to address the City Council on any item not on the agenda. Members of the public, when recognized by the mayor, should come forward to the lectern and identify themselves. Comments are normally limited to 3 minutes. In accordance with state open meeting laws, no action will be taken by the City Council this evening. So this is the time for citizen comments. Are there any citizen comments on the phone? Hearing none. Are there any citizen comments in the chamber? Can you please come forward to the lectern and identify yourself for the record?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Carmen Fuentes Gutierrez, and I'm here translating something that some parents that have a project that they wanted to share with you to seek your support. And they're from the PLT. It's like a parent training institute when they empower parents to advocate and be civic leaders. So I'm going to start. So after COVID, art saves lives. The pandemic was a situation that affected the world in general and that continues to affect us today. As mothers, we experience it daily in our families, group of friends, and in the community in general. As it is well known, our brain releases dopamine and serotonin, substances that help us reduce levels of stress and anxiety that were triggered in large numbers by COVID. Our interest and need for an art center in the city of Livingston is because we have a high number of older adults, children, housewives, and young people. As we all know, leisure is the mother of vices. We urgently need a center of arts, like a house, for arts, where we can invest our time in favor of our physical and psychological health. Taking into account that our community is diverse, as Mexicans from the Mexican culture, we have considered folklore, music, mariachi, and painting, but without forgetting our brothers from other cultures who can also contribute a lot of their culture to our community. Art classes should be available to everyone, not just to people who have the time and money to travel to other cities to take them. We would like to achieve a center of arts full of life that literally saves lives and is a benefit to everyone. That with time and dedication is a way to increase the economy through social events here in our city of Livingston. We no longer want the Livingston that was known for the cantinas or nightclubs. Let us all make Livingston of art a magical Livingston. We know that our proposal is big and it takes time, effort, and different resources. That is why we would like to be able to start by, if you could help us start by supporting us, finding a site, like 2 times a month, and we can bring at least 2 different workshops for the community. We are thinking about dance therapy for women and teaching folklore to be able to have our ballet in the city. Thank you for your support and for listening to our dreams and our needs of the community. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there any additional comments, citizen comments?
I second what she said. And I want the city to hire a grant writer. And I want you to train a grant writer here too, one that already started a course. And I want you guys to help her finish putting her through that so that she can help you. I coach baseball here, and there's some work we need to do on our fields before the season starts. And one of the jobs I do is I run my own company, and I have ideas on how we can reduce some of the weeds that we have around the city that are popping tires on bicycles. It's really expensive. So I'd like to be able to write that for you, and it would be able to ask, here's my thought. So I worked in integrated pest management for, I don't know, a long time. Still do. And in the private. Now I'm on my own. So public, now I'm private. Anyway, my point is, I study insects. And I fly fish too. So I was thinking that the city could use insecticides less by using beneficial insects more. Your cost would be reduced because you could treat in an isolated area and focus solely on, say, goat heads. We could do that, because I don't know if any of you have fielded a ground ball out here on your fields and taken a goat head to the pond. I have, a lot of them. And what I'm telling you is really good advice. So If you don't take it from me, take it from any number one of the other PCAs and CCAs who have more education than I do around here. The other thing I wanted to talk to you guys about, I don't care about your timer. I really don't. I want you to know, I need you guys to work on the water. You have to work on the water. I don't know if you know this or not, but by the wells, I noticed this the other day, by your wells, all of the wells, or near the wells, there's a drainage basin pond. And that's there to collect the water. Not so we can pump it out the next day, but so we can let it sit and soak. And I will tell you, I understand you guys have to work because we have storms coming in quicker. They're not going to stop. And if we had a large storm, you guys wouldn't be able to keep up with the number of pumps you have. You need more pumps for this city. You guys are doing such a good job. I see you guys out there in the rain, and I love it. So I want you to focus on the water because it's important. Not only do I buy your water, we also buy water at the store. Have to go down and buy it here, and I can stand out here and talk to people all day long because people were just coming back and forth. We have to fix your water, okay? There, I'll even give you 4 seconds.
Thank you for your comments. And then always feel free to just reach out. Thank you.
Good evening, Council. So last night, along with Mayor Moran and the ladies from PLTI, we met about their proposal to the city about, what, as Carmen stated, this community has a very, very fruitful recreation program with all the sports, and I know that we don't have enough because I know that I heard a lot of kids were left out because, like I said, the city needs more coaches and obviously more funds to, and we don't have enough properties or schools, yards to for them to play in. But also too, what she stated was very important that besides recreation, we also need part of recreation is also the arts. There's different forms, and as she stated, she would like to have the team, the Parent Leadership Training Institute, part of the MCOE, Merced County, that they're getting the classes from. They're seeking a location, so hopefully this building a couple of times or so a month, and but also too another building, I don't know, somewhere in the city where they can have an arts center where the community it'll be multicultural. This is a very beautiful, diverse community, and I think it's important for us to support the community, whoever it is, right? And to showcase to the community, and preferably, like I said, maybe this building, if it's available next door, that can be offered to the community and central. And as people walk by, or encouraged, they can have programs, during the season, and especially during the street fairs. They can come in and walk through, or they have programs where they can send it out to the street fair, and the community come in with families. So that's what's very important for them to, show off, and like I said, it's a lot of behavioral health issues. So will be alleviated. So and much more, right? Because people just want to get out and do stuff, and that we have much talent in this community. So I think it's very important to support them. And as part of that, I also, as in the past, I said to this community that I had the funds in the county, $40,000. So I had set aside $10,000 for the neutering program in the city, and that's still there. But I know that it's very complicated issue and very expensive. So I'm hoping that with this program to the arts, I can also donate $5,000 or $10,000 depending on the need to bring up any building where it be accessible and clean up, because it has to be structural. Used for structural items. So hopefully the city can move forward, and if you guys can put it on the budget to support them, that'll be much appreciated. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any other citizen comments?
Yeah, how you doing, council? I mean, I really like that you're working on the store at the end of the road there at town. Well, somebody is investing a lot of money into that store. And our city hasn't addressed the dry well that drains that parking lot. Because I drive by there and I look and I go, wow, we have another puddle there, and yet we have a drain there that hasn't been serviced in 2 years. And I'm just wondering why the council hasn't addressed that. I mean, here we got someone investing into a new business into our town, gonna be paying lots of taxes. I'm sure they're paying permits and stuff for all that work they're doing. And yet our city's neglecting to fix the drain next to their parking lot. I mean, if I spent a bunch of money getting a new asphalt parking lot, I'd be a little upset that it was flooded on the entrance to my back door where, wait, all of my product comes in the store. My employees come in the store. Pretty much everything comes in that back door to go into the store for our community. Now, is it because we don't have a good maintenance plan on those drains? Because there's not just that drain, it's other drains. But I would be a little disappointed if I was a new business coming to invest my money into town and my parking lot's flooded. And I really love the city trying to pump that water across Peach Avenue. And wait, it runs right down First Street to the one drain at the corner of J and First. One drain. That drain is overflooded, and it's starting to run between the sidewalk and the ground, and you can tell that it's sinking. And hey, going to school, I learned about that. Hey, if there's too much water in one spot, sometimes it creates a sinkhole. Now, I can only imagine the sinkhole underneath the sidewalk there, that people are walking back and forth to school. Oh, wait, our elderly are walking back and forth to exercise at Arcadian Park, and they're walking right over a sinkhole that who knows when it's going to collapse. And the city has went out and kind of addressed it. But like I said, sinkholes come from nowhere. And I just sit there and go, when all the water's running underneath the sidewalk and not into the drain, we have a problem that needs to be addressed before, wait, that big old tree that's been there for 60 years is going to probably collapse and fall across that intersection because everything is going to collapse on that side. And I just didn't know if you guys were aware of that. Because me, if I was the owner of that building and putting all this money into that town, I'd be a little pissed off that my entrance to my back door is flooded. And there's a drain right there that you haven't touched for 2 years. 2 years. And that comes from your city employees. Now, when you drive to Outwater and you go, wow, it's raining and flooding here too. But look at, their crews are pulling up the grates and servicing the dry wells that they have so that they work properly. They may not work the best, but they're working and their streets aren't flooded. Have a good day.
Thank you for your comments. Is there any more citizen comments here in the chamber? Seeing none, we're closing citizen comments at 7:20. So let's see. Next, we have announcements and reports. Supervisor Rodrigo Espinosa, announcements and reports.
Good evening, council again. Okay, our next board meeting of the Board of Supervisors of Merced County will be February 27, a week from now. If in case you have there's any issues or locally, just give me a call, please. O en español, si alguien tiene un problema del condado o sea, de servicios, por favor, llámeme. La ciudad tiene mi número o nomás llámeme. Lo tengo en el Facebook también. And I also wanted to share that last week I was trying to help. I was reached out by a constituent in Merced where, she stated this 6 adults and 3 children, Venezuelans, were arrived in Merced County. And then they sent me a video. Supposedly, from Venezuelans across the border, they were sent to Texas. And from Texas, they shipped them to Colorado. Colorado didn't want them, so they were shipping them to Indio, and they ended up in Fresno. And so the mayor of Fresno and the council member Arias had a conference, and they stated that it was, they were trying to, help them, right, place them, but eventually, it was illegal for them to ship them out to different cities, and eventually they shipped 6 to Merced County, so actually in total 9 people. I think from the total of 16. So you have a huge city of Fresno and a huge county, double our size, and 9 of them ended up in Merced County. In my district, Planara, my community, in my district, that's part of this district right here. And, it's already being supported by the $20 million and on the floods that caused last year. And they shipped them over to us, where the residents are already, not that we don't want to help them, obviously. I went out there and I took them some food and more offered my services, but also too, from on my part is, the mayor and council out there said that, they weren't allowed to ship them out from there. But, anyway, we're looking into that because potentially the county will have to offer services if they seek services. And so, we're trying to see if it's legal and then if we can get reimbursed from the county or the city of Fresno. So, and in regards to the Planada, the $20 million that was addressed to them, they'll be taking applications of the residents that were affected there. I know I'm addressing it because some residents might have moved out of Planada and might have came to different communities, and I don't know if we have any here in the city of Livingston, but they can apply from March 11th to April 20th. They'll be taking applications for part of the $20 million. So if you have any questions, please give me a call. And also, again, Planara, the post office has been an issue because it's been a year and they haven't fixed our post office. So for many years, I was addressing it to Jim Costa, and I never got any support. Since 2017, we had another small flood back then, and we never got any support. So we've been dealing with the postmaster, the director from Santa Clara, and it's been terrible service because the community needs their post office. It hasn't opened in a whole year, and people have to drive all the way to Merced to pick up their mail. So it's been, service has been pretty bad. And so hopefully they're supposed to open it up by the end of the month. So hopefully that's the case. But again, I want to give a big thank you to Congressman John Duarte and his staff. Sam Samra and Christian Santos has been very supportive and trying to get communication back and forth to the post office. So thanks to them. Also, too, I want to say that, just in case here in Livingston or anywhere in the county, if there's anybody regarding any lighting that's out in any post, please get the number on the pole and give us a call. If you're in the city here, you can call Jose Moran or any of the council members or me, and we'll be happy to call, Public Works. Or if it's a PG&E light post, we can try have them come and fix it. I have a number for PG&E, so the representative, so that they can fix it. Last week I had a meeting for the San Joaquin Regional Rail Commission, and it was a joint meeting with the San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority, which is all the trains. They're dealing with trains around the Central Valley and part of the Bay Area. We had a meeting to discuss the funding, and so with being that the ACE train is going to come down through Livingston, and we're hoping that we can get the train station here in Livingston, but unfortunately it might be till around 2030 or around there. Eventually we'll get our station here, and whenever eventually comes down here. But I know with the budget shortfall, hopefully it's not delayed, because there are a lot of the projects are starting to slow down, and we're going to have to discuss and prioritize different projects that are going on from anywhere from Elk Grove all the way to Merced. So I know that they're working on the city of Ceres on that train station so far. I also, we, along with Mayor Moran. We attended a meeting in Merced with some UC Berkeley students. They came, to learn more about the water and how the effects of groundwater wells, and so they created a sample, a small sample of how kind of like the wells work and how when there's no water and there's drought, it affects our groundwater. Also related to that, they also kind of gave an example of how when you have contamination, they added, different color water, like red color, to assimilate contamination. Anything when you have a big gasoline or oil leakage on the groundwater, how it seeps down into the ground and eventually it goes to our groundwater and contaminates it for our drinking source. So that's what the students were learning, and so that was a very informative meeting there. So it was pretty good. Also, the Board of Supervisors, we had a workshop on Friday in Los Banos at the fairgrounds. It was a public meeting, and the local Gene Okuyi attended that meeting. So we kind of like prioritizing our projects for the next year or in the future. So customer service, providing better customer service to the public, and the Board of Supervisors goal. So in case Mariana has a question, you can give me a call, and I'll be glad to show you the priorities. So that's all for me, Council. If you have any comments, or from the public as well.
Council, are there any questions for the supervisor?
Anybody from the public?
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have city staff announcements and reports. Anthony Chavarria, Public Works Director.
Good evening, Council. Tony Avina will be presenting the Public Works update this evening. He said he missed you guys and missed being up here and wanted to communicate with you.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. This is going to be our Can you hear me now? Okay, here we go. Public Works update, February 20, 2024. So we got some citywide curb painting. During the summer, we really neglected some of our painting due to a lot of our slurry seal projects we had going. So we've been really adamant on trying to catch up, mainly the downtown area, high schools, and areas that really needed the touch-up. Wastewater treatment facility out at our wastewater plant. This is just a few pictures of our biosolids that are usually picked up every year. This time it went around, and 2 years before we hauled it off. This is all the drying sludge biosolids that are collected for 2 years. They were hauled off. We collected 368.15 tons of biosolids, and the rate that we paid to haul off was about $38,500. So that project was done months ago, but I just wanted to update you on some of the things that are going on out there.
And this is the end product from when we flush our toilets, and it makes its way to the wastewater treatment facility, and as decomposed, we decompose organic matter, and this is the end result after the treatment process is complete.
Thank you for that clarification.
Then we got our parks tree trimming. We've been hitting a lot of our parks, trying to catch up on the trimming. As you see, what we have to the left, this is some of the mistletoe and just the outgrown trees that we try to get to every couple years. And then with the help of the fire crew, we usually have them assist when we can get them, but it's been a big asset because you could see the trees there to the right, how much better the trees look, and this, like I say, with a lot extra manpower helps us. Here's a couple more. Several parks have been getting trimmed, Memorial, Arcalian, and anywhere we can get our crews. And if we're not being assisted by the fire crews, our crews are still on it and time willing, and with their other projects as well.
And it is important to get that mistletoe trimmed out of the tree, because if you leave it there for too many years, it does cause stress to the tree, and eventually it's acceptable to disease and really damages the tree.
Then we got some storm drain, lift station cleanup. This is in between some of the storms we had. We get a lot of debris in our lift stations, and the only way to get in there is that our rotor truck, VATCON, it actually sucks all the debris out, and at the same time we wash the pits down. And on all the way to the right is also some of the issues we've had is with some of these motors down below are getting clogged with debris, and we've even found is 2x4s that are clogging our motors, and we're having to pull them and clean them up and put them back. We have replaced a few, and we're getting ready to replace a couple more. Also, during that time where we're replacing and checking some of these, waiting on motors, this is what we've had to do. We've had to rent a backup pump to pump over. This is over at Arcalian Park, and you can see the pump is pulling from the pit, and then it's bypassing our piping that pumps into the canal, as you can see all the way to the right.
And just to bring to remembrance, Council, you did approve a new replacement pump at this location probably about 2 council meetings ago. But there is a 6 to 8 week lead time for this. But in the meantime, we have to rent a portable pump just to assist and dewater that basin during storm events.
And here's just showing you, I know in the past couple of years we've had a couple of severe storms, but this is the aftermath of some of our catch basins, Fred Worden, Joseph Gallo, and several other of our little basins have all been hit when it rains. So
a little bit more on the Frederick Worden Basin. We've fared extremely well this season during our rain events. Staff went out there and dissed. They ripped, dissed, and ripped quite a few times to restore in hopes to restore the percolation rates within that basin. And we have been successful. We have not had to run that pump nearly as much as we have in the past. So that did help with some percolation rates within that basin.
Anthony, was that done like normally, like, I don't know, like within the last month prior to the storms, or is that done throughout the year? And then if not, would it help probably to rip the dirt throughout the year instead of just prior to?
Yes, past practice, this was a basin with irrigation piping where grass was grown. So over time, that really hurt percolation rates or the ability for that basin to percolate. So the thought process here was to remove the irrigation, get in there, work the ground, disc, rip, to try to facilitate allow the percolation within that basin. And yes, it has helped. We went in there during the end of summer in preparation before our rainy season. And hit it again. And I think if we continue season after season, continue to disc and deep rip it, we'll continually improve percolation rates in that basin.
And this is some extra flooding in several areas. recent storms. So when that happens, we're out there with any pumps that are available to clean up the excess water everywhere. And like I say, it's not just one area we're working on. We try to keep all the streets safe. As long as we got our lift station pumping, everything should be going. But when we get hit hard with a storm and a lot of water drops at once, this is what the aftermath is that we deal with.
And this is the resident that spoke earlier was referring to this area on Peach. Staff is working with engineering to try to identify some areas where we can improve the drainage. Unfortunately, the way it's flowing right now is just hydraulics. That's the way it was created. That's the way the water flows here. But we'll be working with engineering to see where we could make some improvements. But there's only so much that we could do. That's just hydraulics.
Question, that piece of land, that vacant piece of land between the store and those homes, or there's a couple of homes on that side, is that vacant lot part of the city or is that county?
I believe it's city. I'm not 100% sure, but it's not city-owned, but I believe it's within city limits. But I think right after that is county. There's a section in there that's county.
Yeah, well, for one, because there's no sidewalk and there's no infrastructure there. So, then again, that's where puddles, that's where it floods, and if there's no infrastructure, then it makes it more difficult for that water to go anywhere. Maybe that could be something for the city to plan ahead, whether it's Measure V funds or something, to at least plan for a way to plan ahead, whether it is just a sidewalk or with the infrastructure in place, or I guess we have to wait for engineering to come back for some options, figure out a way. And then I understand that's like one of the old parts of town. Then, it only has so much, I'm assuming it only has so much capacity to where, it wasn't designed to take all of that water.
Right. But staff has internally came up with some remedies as well. Like if you look at that middle picture, we could put what's called an undershot to where we would put an inlet where the water's at, and it would travel underneath the road and daylight into across the street in the curb and gutter, and then flow hydraulically, make its way back to the basin. But those are some of the improvements that we could do in-house. But some of the other areas we'll need help with from engineering.
Sir, I'd like to echo what the mayor has said as well, and you mentioned it as well. We're looking for more long-term fixes. I know it's really tough on the crew to get out there, especially when it's raining, trying to be more proactive than reactive, essentially. But everything we can do to help, I'm sure we definitely will. Thank you.
That also is the area that the gentleman spoke
Yes,
about.
correct. So then also some of the other items that during the storms, we lose a lot of trees, so here we have our crews adamant on replanting trees. This is here at Memorial Park. We put a couple other trees up at some of the other parks as well. The graffiti update is just pretty much going to be me going over the problem we've been having for the last couple of months. We've been spending several hours not just on our city parks, restrooms, sidewalks, but we've also been hit really hard on the private sector. So our code enforcement has been going out and getting the residents to sign their paperwork they need to for us to cover it up right away. So we have been, in the last several months especially, been hit hard with graffiti, and like I say, it takes up a lot of man hours on both sides of our crews, which is mainly our parks, LMDs areas, even sidewalks, And on the other side, on the private homes, we work with the code enforcement and with the homes. Once we get those signatures by the residents, we're able to go ahead and clean it up because it's been very, very ugly on very many walls, homes, fences. So we've been spending several hours in both of those departments, but working with the PD and the code enforcement.
And I forgot to mention, now that you mentioned graffiti, you know that water canal on the corner of, south on the corner of Dwight and Peach, is that county? That little bridge, the little just,
Yes.
that's county? Okay, yeah, because, I mean, they use that a lot to put graffiti, but
Park.
I'll send an email to the supervisor and to Mr. Mendez, county CEO, just to see what they can do, if they can come out and clean that up as well. And then also on top of 99 overpass over Lincoln, but that's county, so. And I know that you guys been really on top of that, like sometimes within the same day. I know I had some residents shared some concerns with their graffiti on their fences and stuff like that, and other walls, and you guys were there within the same day. And sometimes the next day, because you guys were not able to reach the owner of the home, and so appreciate that.
Yeah, we try to respond quickly when, especially if it's gang related. There is some delay time that we experience when it is on private property, because we do have to follow the ordinance and have a consent form, a waiver release form signed off by the resident.
So then we went ahead and added the one-year CIP list on here as well. So on the water side, we got the well 8 replacement for well number 8, currently in construction, anticipated to be completed in the fall of 2024. On the wastewater, we have the sludge drying equipment, purchase and installation, currently in electrical engineering review, anticipated completion winter of 2024. On the parks, we have the CMAQ multi-use pathway projects, phase 1 and 2 at Max Foster Sports Complex. Will go out to bid soon and construction to start in 2024. On the streets slurry seal project, we have the 2023 slurry seal project has been completed. And on the storm, East Avenue Storm Pump Station, currently engineering is in design. Questions?
Actually, I was making notes, and I always forget a couple of things, but, and I forget to email you guys too, so, but now that you were mentioning about the drains and stuff like that on the corner of Campbell and East, that drain right there has a couple of yard signs in there, so, as more garbage goes in there, and that might cause a problem in the long run, and then maybe once you are able to clean that up, maybe call Mr. Rodrigo Espinosa and he can probably pick them up. Council, are there any questions? Well, once again, thank you, and I did ask I was thinking about asking the city manager to provide me a radio so I can contact you guys more directly, but for now, it's just emails have to do. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have city manager announcements and reports.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to give my appreciation and gratitude to the Public Works team. I know that they've been out there in full force the last few weeks, so I appreciate everything that the crews are doing out there, so thank you. Mayor, Council, I wanted to spend a little bit of time giving an update on two things, master tax sharing agreement and then development updates in the community. These are really relevant because they are topics of discussion right around this time. So just by way of overview for the master tax sharing agreement, on September 21, 2004, the city and county entered into a revenue sharing agreement. On January 6, 2009, there was a cancellation to the agreement due to a conflict between the 2025 Livingston General Plan policy for future growth of the city of Livingston and the county general plan. And then on October 22nd, 2019, the county brought an item before the board to enter into a new agreement with the city of Livingston. This agreement was approved by the Board of Supervisors following the first and second reading of the ordinance. The city did not act on the new agreement in October at a regularly scheduled council meeting. Some of the key items based on the 2019 or just the history for fiscal year 2004, 2005 to 2008, 2009, there was an 80-20 split. In 2009, 2010, and thereafter, there was a 70-30 split. One of the key points in that agreement was that the county fire fund will retain the base property tax for the county fire fund, and pursuant to section 96.5, the county fire fund will retain the incremental tax rate for the county fire fund. For the mayor and the council, we talked about this at the last council meeting when it came to how to fund any sort of new staffing levels at the city's fire station. Again, effective, and this is the 2019 agreement, effective January 1, 2024, the city agrees to share 5% of the city's 1% Bradley Burn sales tax receipts with the county of Merced. As a result of the agreement, the city's rate would be 95% and the county's rate 5% of the total 1% Bradley Burn sales tax receipts. This is really important because when we talk about any sharing of revenue with the county, it's really important because in the 2019 agreement, the proposal would see that 5% of the city's sales tax would be remitted to the county. So essentially the city would be operating from a 5% loss of revenue, and it would need to make that up somehow. So those are the things that are really relevant to financial solvency for a community into the future. Again, some more details related to that 2019 agreement. The county shall receive 100% of the county fire fund ad valorem property tax revenue from each annexation area. And again, this is really technical policy related to the tax sharing agreement. This is purely just included here as background so that the community understands what's really at stake with this conversation. Part of the conversation, and we just had a meeting today with Mayor Moran, Supervisor Espinoza, Supervisor Silvestre, and also the county CEO, Raul Mendez. And some of the things that we have been talking about that are really relevant for this specific time is that this annexation, this tax sharing agreement really should focus in on policy areas and what the potential growth is for the city of Livingston. Staff is currently looking at hosting a joint workshop with the Planning Commission and the City Council to really look at those policy areas with respect to growth, because we know that based on whatever that zoning is in those areas, there's potential opportunities for growth, and that really stipulates the amount of revenue that would go into any sort of tax sharing agreement. There's a key policy item with respect to the fire fund. Should that remain with the county or should it remain with the city? We talked about at the last council meeting that having the county retain those revenues really hamstrings the city's ability to look at other options to provide fire services to the city of Livingston. One of the core items, and we spent a considerable amount of time this afternoon talking about it with the county, is as a result of any sort of annexation of new areas into the community, there's a fundamental question: who will service the new area? We know that with areas that were once the county that then become the city the city will be responsible for providing police services, recreation services, public works services. And so there should be an offsetting revenue that goes into factoring in to cover those additional levels of service for those now formed city areas. And from the city's perspective, it's really important to get an understanding of what those costs are. Again, sharing, as I mentioned in the previous slide, sharing of existing sales tax versus any increment or growth in sales tax. Taking a proportion of base sales tax, of existing sales tax, means that the city needs to identify what revenue stream it's going to utilize to cover that loss of revenue. And that's really important, again, for the financial solvency of the city of Livingston. Again, on that same note, the long-term sustainability of Livingston is critically important. This means service solvency and the services that we provide to the community, such as police services, but also financial solvency, because without financial solvency, you're unable to provide services to the community. So looking at it from that perspective is really important for the city of Livingston. One of the approaches that I think is probably a new approach based on having these conversations with the county is that the city has taken an approach to present facts, data, and policy level questions to the ad hoc committee, so that when we're talking about this with the county, we're being transparent. There's a rationale for why we're recommending certain areas be focused in on, because at the end of the day, staff makes recommendations to the city council, and the city council really operates at that high level policy area. And so it's really important for the staff to have a good understanding of what the facts are and what the data are, so that we can make a recommendation to the city council. As I mentioned, we talked about being rooted in data and facts and rationale. We brought on Baker Tilly to assist us with developing a long-term financial model. And this is really critical because we have factored into our financial model the cost for two-person staffing. And you can see based on the graph here that adding the additional cost of $750,000 for the additional staffing means that the city would need to utilize fund balance or its savings account to pay for that, because there's not a new revenue stream to accommodate that. And I give kudos to the council for approving the agreement to do some polling for the community with respect to a potential sales tax measure to help fund the additional fire services in the city of Livingston. You can see the chart on the right gives a pretty grim picture when it comes to the long-term sustainability of the city's finances as it relates to adding new levels of service for the community. As we start talking about hypothetical examples of a tax sharing model, we looked at the 2019 agreement, and we know that there's going to be additional levels of service that are needed for the city of Livingston to service the new parts of the community. So the hypothetical example that we took is we added 1 FTE every other year, which reflects a moderate estimate for the increased workload and the desire to improve current levels of service to accommodate and service the new levels or the new parts of the community. You can see that the cost grows, and you can see what it does to the fund balance. And so you can see that by fiscal year 33, the city is running a really bad deficit situation without some sort of discussion related to how do you accommodate that growth in the community. So what we did is we took the 2019 draft agreement that the county had provided to the city of Livingston, and we plugged in a hypothetical scenario into our financial model. And so what we did in this instance is that we assumed 1,000 new residential units between fiscal year 27 to 2031. $50 million worth of non-residential value, and then added revenue of $300,000 sales tax and $50,000 in transit occupancy taxes. You could see that as a result of the growth in revenues, you can see what that means in terms of the potential revenue that gets gained as a result of that. So you can see that even in this scenario, adding 1,000 units would essentially be a net, it would be a bad financial situation for the city to be in. And this really goes back to the theme of what the city of Livingston is talking about, is that any sort of master tax sharing agreement needs to make financial sense from the city of Livingston. So the position of the county can be whatever their position is of what a tax sharing agreement should be. From the city of Livingston, we need to make sure that we're prioritizing future expenses and ensuring that any tax sharing agreement is structured in such a way that it doesn't create a deficit for the city of Livingston. So that concludes the update on the tax sharing agreement. We had a good conversation today, and from the ad hoc committee, I think what we were really trying to drive home today was the city of Livingston is recommending looking at the expenses and future growth of the community and using that as the baseline for what the tax sharing conversations really need to be about with respect to a new tax sharing agreement. So now I wanted to spend a couple minutes just talking about development updates. Gary will be providing an update at the next council meeting about more details about some of these projects. We are currently working with Dutch Brothers. The applicant has an issue with a condition of approval regarding traffic analysis. The applicant is wishing to modify that condition of approval. I can't unilaterally make that adjustment. It will require going to the Planning Commission as well as the City Council. We will have to bring that forward to the Planning Commission and the City Council for discussion and potential action by them. And one of the key things that we're trying to do here is promote clarity and promote transparency. The opportunity here is with new staff on board like Gary, really looking at conditions of approval, making sure that conditions of approval are written in a way where applicants, developers have clear expectations, and that we minimize the gray that exists in conditions of approval. I think at the end of the day, that's what we're all trying to do, because we do want to ensure that the development community is very clear with what the expectation is. The Tierra Santa Villas, we had a conversation with them, I believe it was Thursday. Again, this applicant does have an issue with a condition of approval regarding a traffic analysis as well as right-of-way requirements. We had a good conversation last week. They are seeking information from the city engineer related to water. Again, some clarity and some information from the engineering team. And we did have a meeting last Thursday to work through these items and really be transparent again. Happy to see Diego here this evening. Had a conversation this morning to circle back on an 8 housing unit project. We think it's an incredible project. There are some existing utilities on site that make this project a little bit more unique than maybe other projects. There was information submitted back to the city back in January, so we're hoping to move that project forward and work with our development team in getting that project moving. Maverick Livingston Super Convenience Store, it's just under 6,000 square feet convenience store, 8 fueling dispensers, 4 truck fueling dispensers, and 46 parking stalls. I did speak to the owner this morning and encourage them to get their application into the city for review. Very positive discussion this morning. And so again, we want to make sure that we're being clear, transparent. And I did, when I spoke to the owner this morning, told them that once they get to the point of submitting their application, and if there's any conditions of approval that are placed on that project in the future, that we take a hard look at them and make sure that everybody's understanding of what those conditions are, so that we minimize any sort of potential issues in the future. The Moonglow truck stop, this does include travel center, fueling stations, quick serve restaurant. We did host a meeting on, I think that was Friday, with the development team. Gary headed up that discussion. Good conversation again. We're working through a few things, but the purpose of that meeting was really to make sure that everyone had clarity so that once it comes to pulling permits and getting that project built, that everybody is in agreement and in alignment with what the expectations are. I want to thank Noe and the engineering team for also providing some feedback to the applicant as well. These are just a handful of projects that are coming up, but these are the projects that have been hot on the radar for the last week or so, last few weeks. Wanted to make sure we were getting information out to the community as well as the council. The last thing that I do want to mention is that we do have this monthly planning update that we send to the council. This illustrates all of the projects in the community, the notes, the location, APN numbers, and where it stands with any status updates, anything that is progressing or anything that could be potentially stalling. We do provide that on a monthly basis. I know that Gary and I had a conversation this morning. We do have a few updates that will be updating this document and sending the council an updated document on this. That concludes my update, Mayor. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Council, are there any questions, comments?
I have a comment.
Yes, go ahead.
So that was a great presentation there. There's a reoccurring theme of the clarity, and transparency. So what is it you spoke about? Many of these COAs that we have with these developers, these projects have been in the pipeline for quite a while. So I heard of many words, the clarity and transparency. So what is that looking like on their side? What is holding them? I mean, it's the permits, I heard that as well, and the expectations. So the expectations on their side, where is the glitch here? Who is not providing as much information as possible?
So I'll give one example. For instance, there may be a condition on a project that states that they're required to do a traffic analysis and provide a corresponding fee on the development impact of that project and their respective traffic impact. And in one instance with one of these projects, they were required to do a traffic analysis and then base a fee off of that. Without an overarching understanding of what those traffic impacts might be collectively across the city, we're left to analyze and have the applicant conduct a study and then recommend to the city what the fee would be. When I talk about clarity and transparency, it might be beneficial for the city to have an overall better idea of what those impacts would be and the potential costs associated with mitigating that. So on the front side, what that might look like is a corresponding fee that the applicant knows that they need to provide on the front side versus going through the entire project, getting ready to pull a permit, and there's still some ambiguity as to what that fee is. So what that will require is the staff, and the good thing about having new staff on board is that you get a new set of eyes to look at things. So Gary coming on board, the opportunity exists to look at the conditions that may have been utilized the same in a similar manner, and looking at it, providing language that's more clear and more transparent with what the expectation is for an applicant or developer in the future. So that's really what I mean by providing clarity and transparency.
So without being upfront with their process, it was more like a cookie cutter thing that we were doing, applying to their, I mean, because even with that traffic study report, I know that it's from, 2014, perhaps?
It's old. It's old. And so what we're doing is instead of utilizing language that may have been utilized previously, with new sets of eyes looking at things, making recommendations for language that's more clear of what the expectation is, maybe not leaving things up in the hands of an applicant to provide what they think the fee is, having an understanding on the front side so that everybody is clear, so that we're not scrambling to try and identify what the fee should be when we really want them to pull permits and start constructing their project.
Are there any other questions, comments? So, I think that having I have read some of the reports, and I think we do have in place what we should consider checks and balances. All of these projects come through the Planning Commission first, and then there's a recommendation made before they come to the council. And I think that we're starting to figure out a way to solve some of those issues that now it just seems like they're very similar issues with a lot of these projects. I'm really looking forward to, in the future, not having these issues, and because at the end of the day, it only causes the investors and the developers more time and money. And the faster we can get them through the different offices that they got to go through, the better. And then especially as, with the way things are costing and increasing in price, it just becomes more expensive. And then sometimes it might come to a point towards just not cost effective to continue moving forward, because the business model, it just doesn't make sense anymore. So, whether it is, I can probably think of a few different reasons, or a few different reasons of why some of these items are now, coming up. It's whether, I think that's a thing of the past. Let's just leave it. What I want to do is just want to make sure that we just continue moving forward, and hopefully that those reasons of why things were not being addressed is in the past, and just we continue to make an effort to grow, and getting these projects to start breaking ground, to benefit the city and everyone participating. So other than that, it makes sense. I think that probably having more of these updates to the council is not only beneficial, but also to the public to, also kind of see what we're doing or what the city is doing. Because a lot of times, from the time that they hear about a project, it's to the time they're breaking ground, into the time it's completed, it's probably, 2, 3, 4 years. And a lot of times we don't realize everything that it needs to go through to be able to get accomplished. So other than that.
Well, one of the issues that I'm hearing, and that you said it at least twice, was that these are issues of the past. But it's not. We're having to deal with these now and take corrective actions for it. And us as a council are going to have to look at these and develop better policies, because what it appears to be is that these projects were done incorrectly and not as efficient as they would, because now we're having to go back and correct these issues and delaying projects. Because you also said that it's not cost effective. It's not cost effective for either one of us, especially if we lose these developers because their projects have been delayed or they were told something else, or they were misled to believe something, that they were going to get something without going through the proper channels. And that for us as a council, we can only make decisions based on the information that we're provided with. So when they come from planning and they've already been set up a certain way for projects to be pushed through, because that also was a recurring theme, that some projects were pushed through incorrectly. And so now we have developers out there saying, well, this project was approved by you and we're wanting this. How come this is not fair for us? That certain projects are being met, and now with the recent meetings that we had, with the emergency, well, it didn't pass, but the issue was the moratorium. So things that you say were in the past, we can't forget about it. Yeah, moving forward, we have to fix it. But over this course of time of at least 4 decades, what have our people been doing? How are these not caught? Through our planning, our engineering, our past leadership.
Anybody else? All right. Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Next, we have City Council members' announcements and reports. Councilmember Mann.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for that report, Mr. Lopez. I just start off with pointing out some things for the Parks, Rec, and Arts Commission. There was an overwhelming response by the community and the need for flag football here locally at the recent signups. With that said, Jackie and the team need help with assistances and working rotations at the camp. Those interested can call 394-8830 to help out. Additionally, the commission is still in need of commissioners. The positions will remain open until they are filled. Please submit your application online or at City Hall if you're interested. You can reach out to me for any questions on that front. Next up for me is going to be the MCAG One Voice meeting. Mr. Lopez and I attended, was it last week or a week and a half ago. Goals have been set and are going through the final approval process with the group. But everything that we agreed on adding here at City Council did make it to the final draft, and I'm sure that it will get pushed through here very, very soon. And lastly for me, for the Merced Integrated Regional Water Management Authority update. So I was told that the group meets, their meetings are very sporadic, and they happen quarterly, but they often do cancel their meetings. Monica did help me reach out and update my contact information with them. There was apparently an email domain issue. After further investigation, all the meetings since I joined the council had been canceled, actually, the most recent being this month. I'll be reaching out to the group for an update and to see when the next meeting is going to be scheduled for, and I'll report out to this group and anybody here as soon as possible. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening, and thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Next, we have Councilmember Soto.
Thank you. First off, if to the language when we say, when it's said to take a moment of silence and for first responders and reciting the pledge, if you could add, because I did notice in the audience that a specific gentleman didn't remove his hat. So if we could add to the language or a kind reminder to remove hats when we recite the Pledge of Allegiance, that would be my part for our advocacy for patriotism. Thank you. March 14th, I will have a divisional meeting for Cal Cities. There was no LAFCO this past week. One of the questions I did have for JT, if you don't mind, if we could, because I do know that we have to have our meetings and open sessions as part of the ad hoc for the 4th of July, is there a specific time that you can meet? We have less than 5 months. We should have had some of this planning underway already, but in order to coordinate, we have to conduct meetings, and it was very difficult. So if I have an idea, if you do have a specific day that you are available at least twice a month, or days that, it's pushing it, but I know that we need to have 2 council members, and we do need to meet on it soon. So if we can.
I appreciate that, and I'm sorry if if my schedule hurt us meeting at all, and my apologies on that front. But with that said, the rest of this week I'm completely open, and I'm pretty open next week. But I can talk to you offline about scheduling one here very, very soon. But I appreciate you pushing this forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And for the manager, is there any, I know that there's going to be a joint meeting. I had seen that's in April, but does that also include with the capital improvement projects of at least a 5-year plan for, is that in the works?
No, we're probably going to look at having another, maybe a shorter term, maybe a 3-year CIP. The last year has really been about understanding the city's capacity and getting projects forward. So we won't have a 5-year plan yet, but we're working towards a longer term plan.
At least 3 years.
That's the hope, yes.
Perfect, thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Part of my report, let's see, I forgot, probably about a week and a half ago, I had a meeting with a new local animal rescue organization. And, I was very happy when they reached out and to find out that they're local from Livingston. And they already have their nonprofit status, and so they're well experienced. They have worked with other rescue organizations as well, But I'm glad that we have a local organization, and I just remember that I was supposed to try and schedule a meeting with with Mr. Ramirez, and I just got to follow up on that, and hopefully we can get that organization to meet on a roundtable conversation just to see how they can help and how they can assist and how they can support our efforts at the city in regards to TNR and use their expertise as well. I also met with some students that visited Merced County. They're from UC Berkeley, from the journalism department, and they wanted it to learn more about some of the water issues locally. And they heard about Livingston, and we met with them, and there was a total of about 8-10 students that did a few visits to different communities, and it was very interesting spending a couple of hours with them and just answering all of their questions. Yesterday, I was able to meet with the PLTI parents group, the one that was here earlier today, and it's this group of people that they get trained and they get and part of their, I guess, is like their big final project at the end of the training is they have to come up with a project that they need to complete and that it will benefit the community. And one of their projects that they presented on was this cultural center, and it's very aligned to what the recreation and the city and myself and a lot of other community members want to see as an addition to what we are already doing in the community. And they were considering classes. One of the classes that they presented on was danza terapia, which is mental health therapy through dance. It sounded very interesting. One of the ladies, she is a psychology major, but her studies were done in Mexico. And one of the other ones was just different activities to be able to facilitate and provide art classes and just different cultural workshops. And so I will be reaching out to Jackie and the city manager's office to kind of continue with the conversation and see, just kind of brainstorm and see what the possibilities are to use their expertise and their support and for them to be able to volunteer and work together with recreation. Also, as it was previously mentioned, just before this meeting, we had a follow-up meeting with the ad hoc committee, with the county's ad hoc committee as well for the tax sharing agreement. We have met a couple of times, and more than anything, just thinking and realizing how long it has been since the city and the county have not had a tax sharing agreement. I think it's 20-some years. I feel like at least we're setting a good foundation to have good communication. And I think that is very important because if we don't have a good, strong foundation and we don't have that trust, we don't build that trust, we're not going to get anywhere. And whether or not, how much longer will it be before we have a plan that we can bring to the council and say, this is what's being offered, whether it is, as Mr. Lopez was sharing earlier, some of the previous sharing agreements was 70-30, 60-40, or 80-20, I think it was. But I think it's also a good process for us, the city, to be able to facilitate information in a plan to where it makes sense to the county, kind of like what I call the why, the reason why we're fighting in a certain way and why we're asking for certain things. And then it's also important for us to understand where the county is coming from. And how it was done in the past, I don't know, and I really don't care. I just want to know that we have a strong foundation and just where we want to get from there. So I appreciate that update. And hopefully we have another meeting scheduled for probably in March and another one in April. So hopefully we can be able to come back to the council and provide more updates. And I had a question, and maybe Jackie or someone can answer this question. I know that Councilmember Mann mentioned that there is openings in planning and then also in rec. Is that right? Yes? Okay. So what are the requirements for the recreation applicants, Jackie? Okay, okay.
The people that apply would live within the city limits, that they love recreation, they understand our philosophy, and they're willing to roll up their sleeves and help us do whatever we need to do to get our goals and objectives accomplished.
In the past, if I remember correctly, there was, or there is currently still one position in recreation that was in place for someone that would live outside of the city limits, but was.
Correct.
How is that?
That's filled already. They
That's
have to
filled.
be in the Livingston Union School District, but they
Okay.
can live, you know, outside
In the Livingston School
the city.
District?
Mhm.
Okay. All right. And so within recreation, that's already filled currently?
Correct.
Okay. So live within the city limits and then love recreation, want to volunteer, not just volunteer. So, but,
Right, it's not just coming once
Yeah.
a month to a meeting and
yeah.
leaving after an hour.
Okay.
It's an investment of time and
All right. And thank you for that. And then I was also going to ask from planning, does anybody know what the actual requirements are for the planning commissioners? So thank you, Jackie.
For the record, Gary Conte, Community Development Director, and what is required to be a planning commissioner is being basically a citizen of the city. You have to be living within this community, willing to invest some of your time, because much like you on the council, have a fair number of documents you have to read to take a consideration and make an action. And that's really what's all asked. You know, it's a devotion of your time, and we meet only once a month as opposed to 2 times a month as you do.
And how many positions are?
There are one commissioner and 2 alternates
Currently open?
that are currently open.
And I'm not sure, do we have, I'm not sure if we know, do we have something similar to what recreation has, to where someone that lives within the Livingston School District, but outside of the city limits?
No,
can
you must be a citizen of the city,
A resident of the
a
city?
resident, excuse me.
Okay. All right. So maybe that's also something for council to consider and provide opportunities for. And then again, I don't know how that was about recreation and how that came to be, but you know, maybe that is something for council to consider moving forward and provide opportunities and, you know, for someone. And then again, I don't know how that works and if it's going to help or affect, you know, maybe just at least for conversation that the council can have. All right. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
All right. That's it for me as far as the report.
Mayor, if I can
Yes.
make a comment before we move on. This is to Councilwoman Soto's comment earlier, and I really appreciate her comment about removing hats during the Pledge of Allegiance and otherwise. Just want to throw it out there, some faiths do not allow them to remove articles of clothing from their head. I can speak on behalf of the Sikh community. Individuals that tie a turban are unable to remove it in public. I just want to put it out there for the community as we continue to learn about each other's cultures. So these individuals are not intentionally being rude or disrespectful, but I can appreciate your comment. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Again, I apologize if that sounded insensitive, but I did realize that it was a previous elected that should have known that was it. Culturally, religious-wise, I respect that. So thank you for bringing that to my attention. While I have the mic, there were a few comments during your report, Jose, that are kind of, that are contradicting to what has been said previously. So the communication factor that was stated is that better communication, and yet we don't have full transparency. And then the statement saying that whatever happened in the past, it doesn't matter, I don't care, is really negligent. Because things that have happened in the past, if we don't learn to correct them, we're going to do them again. And let the record reflect, we have been, over the course of these decades, things that we have allowed to do in the past because people did not care to look into what was happening with city money, city funds, how people were getting their permits just passed on by. So yes, it does matter, and it does matter who these people were in leadership that took advantage of our residents and our citizens, our tax-paying dollars, to benefit themselves. So we do have to care. That is why we are here. We are here to serve the people and be cognizant of what is happening in our city. And if it means to dig deep into those issues, that's what we need to do so that we can lead the city forward correctly and safely. So to say that I don't care is reckless. We need to care. That's why we are here.
Well, thank you for your comment, and I beg to differ. You know, that is your interpretation of my comments, and that was not necessarily what I meant. What I meant was in regards to not only how the city had been or not been able to accomplish even having any ad hoc tax sharing agreement meetings in the past. And my comment is also regarding current or previous supervisors and members of the county on whether or not they were not able to have meetings or agreements. That's what I meant by that I was not going to be pushing on something, why, whether it was city, whether it was county, and why they acted a certain way. I understand what you're saying, but you're misinterpreting my comments, and so that is your interpretation, and I'm okay with that, but that's what I meant, and not necessarily like I don't care. Obviously, I do care, and that's why I run, and that's why we are making our different sacrifices as being elected officials, and you can have your own interpretation, and but that was not my intent, and that was not the meaning of my comments. So thank you for that. Next, we have a consent agenda. Is there anything? We have 5 different items, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Under the consent agenda. Items on the consent calendar are considered routine or non-controversial and will be enacted by one vote unless separate action is requested by a member of the public, the city manager, or city council member. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless members of the public, city council, or city manager request that specific items be removed. Public comment on consent agenda items should be limited to 3 minutes per person, regardless of the number of items contained within the consent agenda. Council?
I'd like to comment on 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Are those comments or questions? Do you want to keep them together in the consent agenda, or is that you want those to be separate items?
To approve? Separate items to approve or discuss? I just want to make a comment on them.
Okay, so go ahead.
Our question. Thank you for being here tonight, Musio. We hadn't seen you for a bit, so you may know where this is going. My question is very specific to the meeting minutes and who's doing the work, and the reason I pulled the item is because residents are upset that the four had voted to appoint yet another city clerk who has missed approximately 90% of our city council meetings. The residents are also upset that the four of you voted to hire this person without any explanation, especially given the fact that this person never showed up for an interview or submitted an application in a timely manner, even though another candidate for the position of city clerk did submit not only an application, but also a resume, and even showed up to volunteer to answer any questions the council had. Can you please finally explain to the public the basis of your decision and the resulting effect of continuing to have a paid city clerk that continues to not show up?
Leo, are these questions, I mean, are they related to a specific item within the item, or, because this is not questions to how they were done. I mean, unless it's a question within the item, I don't see how that is relevant.
Well, one, typically, if we're going to comment on a consent agenda item, usually we pull that item. However, it's at the mayor's discretion to take comments without pulling the item. As far as questions go, questions wouldn't be appropriate at this time unless they're directly related to the approval of the meeting minutes.
So should that have been a comment within the comments from, or part of the reports of council member? Or since the question is not, I mean, it looks like it's not a question about the minutes.
Based on the way the agenda is written, I would recommend that that kind of question be done in the section outlined for council member comments versus here, considering the agenda title is just approval of meeting minutes.
The way that I'm seeing this is that we're approving minutes from a year ago, February, March, and another meeting on March. So my question was, can you please finally explain to the public the basis of your decision and the resulting effect of continuing to have a paid city clerk that continues to not show up? So this is a resulting effect. We have minutes that we are doing 12 months ago that we are approving for tonight. That is a resulting effect. Of the decision of appointing an elected city clerk that the four of you chose.
Based on that clarification, I would say that it still seems outside of the scope of the agendized items, because at this point in February and March of 2023, I don't believe the current city clerk was the city clerk at that time.
Item number 5.
Go ahead, ask your question about item number 5.
I've been talking to many residents who still are upset that the mayor chose in a secret meeting to not open to the public to make the decision of who would go to Mexico to formalize the last sister city project. And they were wondering if you're doing away with your pledge to transparency and why you are attempting to get yet another city sister approved. They are seeing it as abuse of public funds, and they are saying that you are only doing this to get the residents to pay for free vacations and trips to Mexico paid by our residents. Can you comment on that, please?
I think this is not the first time that this has been explained. This, as if you remember, if not, you can go back onto the videos on regards to the council meetings. The Sister Cities program was reactivated, and it was dead for a good 6-7 years. And based on requests by different members in the community, it was their desire to reactivate this program. And initially, it was reactivated with the sister city of Zapotlanejo. And part of the program is to have our sister cities visit us in Livingston and for us to visit their city and to learn about their culture. I think this description has been offered more than at least 3 to 4 times to learn about their culture, their traditions, their agriculture, and find ways for us to be able to share and learn about each other. Whether if you're insinuating that we're taking trips as a vacation, have you attended other conferences? Have you brought anything back? Have you learned anything that you have brought back to the city? We are working since day one. We're working on developing different programs through the Sister City program. And it's unfortunate that not everybody in the community that wishes to have the Sister Cities program is reaching out to you, But if you have any other particular project that you want to work on behalf of the city, or whether it's on other sister cities, I don't see why should you not bring that forward. But, and whether it is me that wants to lead this program, it is because I believe in it, and I believe that it not only represents the majority of the residents in our community, and I think it's something that will be beneficial in the long run. So if you believe that, and if your idea is that I'm spearheading this program because I want to take a vacation, well, that is your interpretation. Then, by all means, then let it be. I'm never asking you questions about when you attend conferences and to ask what you bring back. And from what I've seen, you haven't brought anything back to where that could be implemented in the city, that could be of a benefit to the city and to our residents, and where that investment in that conference could be beneficial to our residents. Most of the conferences that I attend are either I pay on my own, or more than half of the conferences that I attend to benefit the city are either they have not been financed by city funds. And if you have any questions, you can always request information from the city manager's office. Do a document request, and just to let you know, and I'm assuming you don't know, but the only expense that was to the city on our trip to the sister cities in Zapotlanejo was the plane ticket, and that was it. And for people to insinuate, like yourself, that everything else that is spent over there, we were hosted by our sister cities in Zapotlanejo. And that's how it works. So if you don't know how the Sister City program works, I suggest you try and do some research and find out.
So that question was posed to you on behalf of residents. I'm not assuming, and I'm not insinuating. I ask the questions that the citizens ask me, just as you do for the citizens that you represent. Okay? When you speak of the majority, there is a little bit of exaggeration on that number. So One of the other questions that was brought to me by a resident was, does anyone on the council have any connection to the city, such as relatives, friends, and have any of the council visited the city before?
Are you asking me or are you asking the city?
It could be answered by either. It's anybody on the council. Does anybody on the council have any relatives?
For example, for the last,
The current.
pardon?
Previous or current?
For the previous trip that I was a part of, I do not have anybody that I'm related to or am friends with in the traditional sense on the other side, no. Thank you.
And so your question was if I know people or have friends from Churincio?
Does anyone on the council have any connection to this city, such as relatives, friends? Have any of the council visited this city before?
What I can tell you is that there's a few thousand people that are residents of the city of Livingston that I know, that they're from this community, and that is why it is important that it is important to have the Sister Cities program with Churincio. So, to answer your other part of the questions, I have no family there, at least not that I know. I don't think my dad was in that area many years ago, so the answer is no.
Also, after the last SEER trip to Mexico, Mayor and Council Member J.T. Mann showed back up to the City Council meeting saying that you were looking for a 20,000 square foot building to bring a business to Livingston from Mexico. The residents are asking for more information on that business, such as who they are and what type of business you are promoting to come to Livingston, especially given our dire water emergency. Can you explain to me, and also for the residents, what this business is, what they do, and who is involved in this business, and how will it benefit Livingston residents?
What I can tell you is that if this business came to the city of Livingston, it would bring and create 30 to 50 jobs. It wouldn't require much of a big demand on services like water or sewage or anything like that. I think it would be a benefit and not only create, other than jobs, it would create a tax revenue for the city. Even if at the end they decide that we are the best location for them.
What type of business, please?
I think at this time I'm going to interject. And the reason being is, I believe the question is about the prior trip and what's currently before the council's consideration of formalizing the sister city partnership between Chirinizo, Michoacan, and the city of Livingston. So I think we're getting a little outside of what's agendized for tonight's meeting.
Sure, I just want to make sure that the residents had their questions asked and answered.
You're welcome.
One last one. I'm going to pose it out there, and again, you may say beyond the agendized item. J.T. Mann, you said that on your previous trip to Mexico, more got done on your trip to Mexico than possibly ever before, but you didn't elaborate on your statement. So if you can, if possible, take some time to elaborate on what got done, as you mentioned, so that we can gauge some of the possible benefits to adding yet another sister city to the list of things.
I think I'm being misquoted. I think I haven't been on another trip for me to compare one to. What I did, if I remember correctly, what I did say was that I learned more on this trip about the Mexican culture than I've ever known before, in that sense. But I could be wrong, so I can look into it and get back to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so at this time, as part of the consent agenda, we have 5 items. Before, so is there a motion to, what is the intent of the council in regards to the 5 items in the consent agenda?
Mayor, I'd like to motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, so we have a motion by Councilmember Mann. Is there a second? I'll second that. And then before we have roll call, I want to go out for public comment. Is there any public comment in regards to the consent agenda items on the phone? Hearing none, coming back to the chamber, is there any public comment in the chamber in regards to the any of the 5 items in the consent agenda? Seeing none, bringing it back to the dais. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Councilmember Roth? Councilmember Mann?
Yes.
Councilmember Soto?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Samra? Mayor Moran?
Yes.
Motion approved by a vote of 3-0.
Thank you. Next, we have discussion and potential action items. So it is my understanding, go ahead.
Mayor and Council, I did send an email earlier today. Jilton requested to have this item pulled from tonight's discussion. They are seeking additional clarity from the Regional Waste Authority, so we will be giving them some more time to get their questions answered by the Regional Waste Authority. So we'll be bringing this back at a future meeting, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're moving forward to item number 7. Item number 7, consideration of a resolution approving appropriations and amending the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget and budgeted positions list. Staff recommendation is to approve the resolution.
So Mayor, before Happy gets started, I just wanted to send my extreme appreciation to Happy in leading many of the initiatives in the Finance Department, including the mid-year budget review. So I really want to thank Happy for deciding to take on and being acting finance director for the city of Livingston. So I wanted the council to know that. So thank you, Happy.
Thank you, Christopher. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, members of the city employees, and members of the audience. Today I'll be reviewing the discussion on amending the fiscal year 23-24 budget. A little bit of a background, the fiscal year 23-24 budget was adopted by council on June 6th, and our fiscal year runs from July 1st, 23 through June 30th, 24. A few of the items that I'll be going over will be the economic update, year-to-date revenues and expenditures based as of December 31st, 23, capital improvement plan update, revenue adjustments, expenditure adjustments, and then our special districts. Our economy update. Our economy outperformed the expectation. In 23, the U.S. appeared to have avoided a recession, and sales tax grew 2.1% for the second half of the 2023 at the state level. City of Livingston property values grew 5%, which equaled around $65 million in new value. Change of ownership added almost $26 million out of the 65. In the city of Livingston, industrial uses grew 11.8 million, and majority of that was Foster Farms. On a state level, statewide home sales had declined in 2023, and that was basically based on the high interest rates and then low inventory. Our year-to-date revenue and expenditures. General fund, we collected around 16% of the revenue through the second quarter, and it's kind of fairly low due to us getting our property taxes payment. We usually get that in January and February. So as of today, we have received our first payment, but this is as of December 31st of 23. The normal for the year as a majority general fund revenues from property taxes, as I mentioned, property tax in lieu, VLF, and franchise tax are received in the second half of the fiscal year, and sales tax is generally received 2 months in the arrears. Community development revenues projected versus actuals are on target. A few of the major projects that have already paid their fees are Arco AMPM, the Tierra Santa apartments, and the Mongolo truck stop. In our non-general fund areas, all revenues are on track for the year based around 48 to 50%. Our general fund expenditures are also running on budget through the end of the second quarter. In our non-general fund areas, revenues are on track. Special districts, LMDs, BADs, and CFDs, revenues received after January and May property tax payments. Expenditures across the board are within our budget. This is our capital improvement plan. Tony and Anthony had gone over this. I'll go over a little bit of it as well. Turf conversion behind City Hall, it's in progress. Completion is to be on May of 2024. Our Max Foster Phase 1 and 2, it will go out to bid in April 24. Construction will start in the summer of 24. For our Livingston Recplex, request for proposal is going out in June of 2024. Slurry seal project is completed. Hammett and Campbell currently in design phase. The roof replacement on Hammett Hall, Max Foster Concessions, and Avernus Storage Unit completed. Sludge drying equipment currently in engineering review. Lift station currently in design phase, and then our well 8A is currently in construction. So the 3 areas of revenues adjustments that we are asking for amending the budget. The first one is our property transfer tax increase. So this is due to a lot of, houses being sold. So we did get an extra $142,000 for property tax increase from the 37 that we budgeted for. Second line item is a reimbursement that we got back from the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District, which was for our fire department and golf cart, which is around $20,000. And the last one is our reimbursement for our 2021 Caldor fires. So what this is, this was not our T6 truck that went out to these fires. It was our police department personnel that went out. So this $30,000 estimate is for our overtime for police department, their mileage, and also their meals. So basically the proposal increase for these 3 line items is around $192,000. You have a question, Mayor? No, keep going, okay. For our expenditures adjustments for the general fund, we are requesting a personnel increase at the corporal level at the PD. In fiscal 2024, adopted was 2 corporals. We are requesting to increase that by 1 to 3 corporals. Police department additional FTE is due to a resolution of a personal matter. This will be paid out of a salary savings, and no additional funding is being requested at this time. The second one that we're requesting is from the parks. Is basically increase of $5,000 and $5,000. That's for facilities O&M and equipment O&M, and that's just to cover the expenses for the remainder of the fiscal year. The last item on this is from the streets, general fund streets, requesting additional $13,000, and that's for engineer services to complete the Measure V regional project application. Expenditures for adjustments for non-general fund. As council members, you guys have the spreadsheet in front of you. I'll go over the major ones that I think that are major ones. They're all pretty much in the 20,000, 50,000. A big one that I want to go over is in the water fund, which is an increase of 200,000, which is for equipment failures for well 12, 13, and 14. And these are unexpected failures at the wells that Public Works is requesting an increase to that budget. Another major one is a potential walk path to be constructed at Max Foster. This is still in the initial phases of the project. So if this does get completed in the time of this fiscal year, is requesting additional $200,000 for this project. And that's going to be coming out of our Measure V funds, the 20% Measure V. The big one on this page of the non-general fund is basically 300,000 requesting, and this is based on the increase in solid waste contract with Jotun, which has not yet been approved. So for the special districts, we do have our CFDs, which cover the landscape maintenance, public safety, streets, and drainage maintenance. We also have our LMDs, landscape and lighting districts, which currently we have around 1.2 million available in this fund, but that 1.2 million is sporadically spread across 26 different districts. So the total number might look like it's a lot, 1.2 million, but it is sporadically around the 26 districts that the city has that we take care of. And that is also used for the landscape improvements, park maintenance, and also the graffiti removal. Our RMA, which is the Road Maintenance and Rehab Fund, there are no major projects for this year in this fund. Local road improvements have been identified using the pavement management system, and currently Public Works and engineers are working on that. Our final remarks, recommendation actions is adopt a resolution approving appropriation and amending the fiscal year 23-24 budget and budgeted positions list. I'll be happy to take any feedback and comments or any questions.
Council, are there any comments, questions? A couple of things, and then again, I don't know if maybe you can answer, or Mr. Lopez, or even if this would be the right time to consider upgrading the license reader cams. I know that we have, I think there's 8 around the city, and I know that there's areas that could be where cameras could be added. Is that something that we could consider adding now or later in regards for budget purposes?
John Ramirez, Acting Chief of Police. So we actually did entertain the thought I want to try to add 4 cameras during mid-year, but I believe the price for the 4, because it's actually increasing this year, was going to be over $400,000. So it was a pretty big price tag to add just 4. So we are looking at adding it to the next fiscal year budget. We'll have to see what the numbers are on that, but at least 4 extra cameras would be nice. Although we just were able to piggyback off of Foster Farm, so they added 2 cameras, the flock system. So we have access to those cameras within the Swan area as well. So that kind of adds 2 to that area. But yes, we did consider that, and we are considering it for the next fiscal year. And that was for the flock cameras. And yes, we do have currently have 8.
So you said, how much did you say for
I think it was over $400,000 for the 4 with the package, including the tech and all the stuff that comes with it, and the maintenance.
That's a big check.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I figure I'd just ask, but thank you for that.
Yes.
All right, and then the other question was in regards to the consideration to add surveillance cameras in City Hall and around City Hall. And then again, I don't know if that is something that I think it would be beneficial. And then again, I don't know if we want to look into that and how much it would cost, or maybe something that we can consider for the next fiscal budget.
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you bring that up. I think in the next 2 weeks, I'm going to be having a meeting at City Hall. I did a security assessment over the last month and a half, so I'm getting ready to present that to Christopher and the staff at City Hall, which includes some surveillance cameras and some lighting, and also maybe some adjustments to some doors in the City Hall for security.
All right, well, I guess we'll wait. All right, thank you. Then that's all I have right now. Any other questions before I go out for public comment?
The turf conversion, what does that look like behind City Hall? I don't remember having that discussion.
Yeah, that was a water conservation project that we had brought to council, and that was part of the one-year capital improvement plan. And we're anticipating completion in May. And this is going to be to remove the grass and the irrigation behind City Hall, this grass strip that's right here behind City Hall, and replace it with turf. And if depending on how it comes out, we're hoping to do all around City Hall as well, council chambers.
Also, the roof replacement at Hammett Hall and Alvarez Storage Unit, is that the same building
Hammett Hall has been repaired, but I think there's some miscommunication on there. The Alvarez shed has not been completed yet. That would need to go out to bid. And that is that little shed. It's a little brick mortar building.
Behind?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that area.
I did have a question for the potential walk path. Last year there was a presentation, and I forget who it was for the Max Foster. It was like a $2 million project.
I don't recall that one.
I think it's a CMAC project, I think, for that one that the council member is referencing. Maybe you can talk about the opportunity here. I know that we've gotten quite a number of residents that have been requesting some walking paths at that park. Anthony, maybe you can talk about preliminarily what that might look like, Anthony.
Yeah, so I think the project you're referring to, Ms. Soto, is the Max Foster Phase 1 and 2 project that has, it's probably been going on since 2020, 2021. That will be going out to bid in April. And construction, we're anticipating construction to start summer of 2024, and that is to improve, to add infill sidewalk at the corner of the child daycare center where that's located on Dwight and Walnut. There's some missing sidewalk in that corner. There'll be an infill project that will connect to the existing sidewalk, wrap around, and there'll be a 10-foot wide multi-use walk path and bike path that will be built as well, that will travel to and terminate at Trigger Lane. And from there, we could look at future CMAC projects to further that. But as the interim city manager had mentioned, we also are looking at possibilities of, that's why we're requesting some funding for the Measure V 20% fund to appropriate funding there, so we could start looking at some possible tie-ins to that walk path once it's completed, to wrap around the park on the edge, maybe back where Emerald Textile is at, and create a walk path and tie back into the front. So there is a complete walk path that residents could utilize within that park.
Is that part of the city area? From
Correct.
Saying Trigger all the way to Campbell?
Yes. Now, we would cut across right where the lift station is. That is our property line right there. Because that other property behind it where we usually shoot off the fireworks, that's private property there. So we would straddle that area, but on public property, on city property, and try to build that walk path. But this is all preliminary. This is something that's been brought up and brought to the city manager's attention. So that's something that we want to, is in our radar.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anything else?
At this time, I will go out for public comment. Is there any citizen comments in regards to item number 7 on the phone? Hearing none, I'm coming back to the chamber. Are there any citizen comments in regards to item number 7 in the chamber? Seeing none, bringing it back to the dais. I do want to say thank you for the consideration to include the potential walk path at Foster, at Max Foster. I know that that residents have reached out to different members, and I know for sure they have reached out, and actually probably Thursday was the last time they reached out and requesting something, a walk path around Max Foster. And I think this is a good opportunity to have something in place, and then obviously later have the opportunity to expand the sidewalk all around, and which will create something additional on that side of town. And I know that it'll just be a little bit of safer, because I do see people walking in those neighborhoods, other than just being close to the street, they can go to the park and spend more time there. So, thank you. I don't have any other questions. Is there motions? I would like to motion to approve item number 7, consideration of a resolution approving appropriations and amending the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget and budgeted positions list. So we have a motion on the floor by myself. Is there a second?
I'd like to second that.
So we have a motion on the floor by myself and a second by Councilmember Mann. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Councilmember Roth? Councilmember Matt?
Yes.
Councilmember Soto?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Samra? Mayor Moran?
Yes.
Motion carried by a vote of 3-0.
Thank you. Next, we have council direction on future agenda items. Council, anything?
I wanted to have an update on on the closed session items we've had in the past with the 2 cases. If we could have that on the closed session item. And then moving forward, if we're not able to coordinate with the ad hoc for the 4th of July, I'd like to see if we might revisit the way that we discussed the 4th of July event coming up. But I will get with you, JT. And then if we can have an update on how we're doing with the municipal codes, the policies, the updates. I know that was something that was being worked on. And then I know that last meeting we had the survey put out. I was just wondering why we didn't have a survey put out to our citizens in regards to the elected positions of a city clerk and an elected city treasurer. So may be too late for that, but I know that that was an item that I had requested before, of seeing those two items on the ballot. One of the things too that I noticed on the mid-year budget review, and I know we just approved it, but it's updating for 3 corporals. We do have a sergeant that's been back to work, is that correct?
Yes.
Are we utilizing him out there in the, because we have an update for another corporal for next year.
Yeah, that's, there's some items that I can't publicly speak about with respect to things in the police department, but we have accommodated for all the sergeants that we need to.
You're welcome. If there's no other council direction or future items, meeting is adjourned at 9:17.